Hello everyone, welcome to Old Bluff. It's been pretty weather out lately, so I thought I'd get my drone and fly around a little bit, show you what I've got back in the back. We had a good bit of the property, about 18 acres, pulpwooded a little while back, and I had marked a bunch of trees to save for the sawmill. I'm just going to fly around and show you some of those. I've been cutting several long ones I'm going to need for my cabin build. I had some 31 footers, 36 footers, 24 footers, just various lengths that I needed to get cut and get them over to the sawmill. But you can see I've got a good bit scattered around. We've got them already limbed and bucked down to 10 inches. Some of these things are about 60 feet long. So I've got a good bit of wood on the ground, probably about 60 or 75 logs on the ground. So 2 cuts out of each one. It's going to be a good bit of cabin logs. You can see here where we're going to build it at some point, that little pond that I've got started. That's my tree stand right there, and those cedars. But this is the back of the property. We got some of the pulpwood done. This is where our little pond is going to be. You can see it's holding a little bit of water, but I've not started on it. I've just got the dam built. And then our home site is going to be right here. We're going to do a log cabin there. So what I've got on the sawmill here is a 24 footer, and you can see I've got it supported out on the far end. I've got to get 4 4x8s 24 foot long to start off in stacking my logs on this build. So I wanted to get these cut, let them dry out a little bit. I've got several different things. I've already got the logs cut and staged here at the mill to get this stuff cut up so it can sit a little while. I've got enough to get started, but I wanted to go on and get these going. And I'm going to deck the cabin with 1x6s, so I've got probably 300 of those that I need to cut. So any of the flitches that I'm taking off, and you'll see some of these flitches are good size. This one's not that good, but all these flitches I'm going to come back, resaw them, and get 1x6s out of them. And I'm just going to, everything that I cut for the next couple of months, whatever offcuts I've got, I'm going to make 1x6s out of, because I got to have a lot of them. But I tried different things with this extended log that I've got, because you know the mill is only set up, they say 21 feet. I'm more comfortable with a 20-foot log. It gives you a little bit of room to run out at the end and to get on the log up here at the operator side. So I try and stay no longer than 20 feet, but I'm in a situation where I had to have these longer ones for my cabin build. So what I've done here goes against my regular way of sawmilling. I've thrown the big end. You'll see here in this, I'm showing you the laser. Can't see it much down here on this camera, but I can really see it at the operator end. I'll show you. You can barely see it on the poles, just right there. You can see it a little bit more towards the mirror, but I can see it good from up at the operator side. It's kind of a weird thing. Here it is back towards the operator side, but I can see it. Now you can see it better here, and I don't know why that is, but it's just the way the laser is. But anyway, so what I've done here, I throw the big end up towards the operator side, which is reverse of what I normally do. But that way it keeps some weight up here, so when I get it down to a cant, it doesn't want to lean or tilt towards that far side. And you'll see that as we go. So what I've decided to do is get this side towards the operator side down to a cant before I slide it forward. That way I'm sliding on a flat surface. I tried several different things in doing this. I tried letting the sawmill run and me push it forward on the roller toe boards, but that was a little bit too risky. The skid steer kind of lifts up on the log as I push it forward because of the incline that I've got just outside that roll-up door. So that didn't work very well. So you can see what I'm doing here. I'm cutting these flitches, getting myself just enough room to slide it back so that the sawmill will come out from under what's left. Then I can push these flitches on out to the front of the building. These things are pretty heavy, some of them. I'll get 1 or 2 1x6s out of each one of these rascals. So they'll be 20 feet long. I'm only needing 18 footers to do all my decking. The cabin that I'm building is 30 feet long with 2 feet of overhang on each end, so that's 34 foot. But I'm cutting my decking boards 18 feet, so I'll have enough to break and stagger on the timber trusses that I'm going to be building. Some of these longer pieces, I had to cut 4 24s. That's what I'm working on here, that are 4x8. They'll be the bottom joist member of my timber frame trusses on the inside. I plan on building those first before I actually frame the roof system. See this flitch that I'm cutting? It's a big one. It's at least big on this end. I had a little flare there, but like I say, I get at least 2 1x6s out of each one of these. But I'm cutting these a little bit oversized so I can come back and dress them off as I get them into a finished piece. So I need 4x8, so I'm going to cut these down to about 4 1/4 by 8 1/4. That way I can come back and face them off, because I've not done these longer logs before, so I want to make sure that I've got a good surface on these. I'm either gonna hew these, or if they turn out good enough, I might leave these just rough sawn, because I think that'll look good in a contrast, having the hewed logs but just rough sawn trusses here on the inside. But I'm gonna I'll get these 4 trusses built on the inside, and I'll probably build my gable walls up from the logs, and I'll deck that with 1x6s and come back over it and put a layer of felt paper on it, and that'll get it where I'm kind of dry it in a little bit. But I'll actually come back once I get my electrical in and build another conventional roof, 2x6s on top of that, and I'll insulate between those rafters. I'm probably going to use a cellulose bat insulation for the roof. Since I'm cutting full 2x6s, I'm going to get the 5.5-inch bat insulation and lay in there in between those rafters, and that'll give me a little bit of airspace above the insulation, and I'll provide access on the blocking at my rafter tails so that I have a little bit of airflow above the insulation. I don't think that'll be too bad. I am going to do a metal roof on this, but somewhere down the road, if somebody wanted to do a shingle roof on it, they'd be able to, and provide enough ventilation to keep the shingles from blistering, overheating during the summer months. Yes, I ran into here is this little tool holder at the tail end of the sawmill. It's hitting on the edges of the log as I try to roll it over, so I wound up just taking it off. It's not used back there, but I think what it is, they just built all these little fine outriggers the same, and in putting that at that tail end of the machine, they just didn't put the locking device that they have for all the other outriggers, that when you get them set, you can just drop that locking device over it and it won't allow it to loosen up over time. So they just didn't put that locking tool on that far end, so really it's not needed at all on that end. I thought about even just cutting it off, but I don't want to go hacking at the sawmill, so I just took that hexagon piece off. It's no longer needed at that end. So I'm trying to remember exactly where I'm at with this. I believe once I get this one done, I'll slide it forward towards the operator end to cut the rest of the flitches off the end of the logs. I'm left with a good 4 feet sticking outside the building there. I hadn't, like I say, I've not done one of these before, so I'm just kind of had several ideas and I wanted to give it a try. And you can see here where that bottom flitch there is actually hitting that movable part of the bed rails there. So I had to be careful about that. And it's actually, that log is sitting there at a slight angle, which really doesn't matter. It's so big, it's not going to move anyway. But here I'm finishing that up just to get this full log down to a cant that I can work with. But I tried several different things. I lifted the roller toe boards up to make a cut, and you'll see that coming up when I get this all cut down to a cant, just to try and see how it would do. But there again, this thing was dangerous too, man. You sticking your head and the arms under there to operate the hydraulics. This thing would bang you in the side of the head if you weren't careful with it. So I had to move that a little bit slow to make sure I didn't injure myself. But overall, this worked out pretty good. And once I got it figured out, what I wound up doing is just sliding that finished cant on the bed rails themselves. So I would leave, when I would start off, I would leave a gap, a small gap between that clamp dog and those back stops, because the log wasn't going to move anyway. But that way, when I got to the end, I had distance between the clamps that I could just push the log forward. So I'm on the last one here now, I think. Get this down where I can start cutting the finished boards out. I wind up, I get the 2 4x8s out of this and then 1 2x8, and I come back and resaw it, get it down to 1x6, because I'm really going to be pushed on 1x6s. It's going to be a while before I need them, but I'm wanting to get them cut so they can dry out somewhat. They don't have to be real dry, but I just wanted to have them on hand, at least enough to get the first set of decking, the interior, done. And I'm probably not going to do any tongue and groove on this. I don't mind the gaps between it. It's just going to make it look a little more authentic. I am going to put a layer of black felt paper on everything, so when they separate or bow apart a little bit, it'll just be a black area between them, because I'm probably not going to put any stain on the decking itself for the interior. I may put a finish on it, a clear finish, but I think I'm just going to leave it plain. I think that'll look good inside the cabin. I want this cabin to look like it's been there for years when I finish it. Not be exactly perfect, but be good enough where it's insulated, stays cool, and I can keep it warm. I'm checking my dimensions here now. I'm making sure everything's the same off the bed rails, because what I'm planning to do here, you can see I've left those roller toe boards up. So once I make this cut down as far as I can, I'm going to try and push the cant into the sawmill with it running. And this turned out not to work very well, and one might think so, but I had to try it. It actually dug in a little bit on the far side. It's not going to affect anything where it's at. I've actually got 2 of these truss members that are going to be inside the bathroom area, where there'll be an actual loft above it, so they really won't be seen. So I'll hold this one out, and that way I can use it. And it looks like that cant is sitting there with a big bow in the middle, but it's actually not. I checked it off all the bed rails, even checked off the frame at the far end. I did buy some cheap roller supports at Harbor Freight so I could support the ends. Like I say, I've got several 31-foot and a 36-foot beam to cut down, so I figured I would need a little bit of extra support on it. So I bought those, and I'll use them where I need to. You can see here I'm clipping off about 3/8 or so, just getting this log down to where it needs to be. So I'll get my 2 4x8s and that 2x8 that I was talking about, so that I have a good clean cut all the way around. I made sure to put a new blade on. I got the flitches cut off and then switched out to a new blade to make these cuts, all these finish cuts. I'm glad I did because it really worked out good on its good grain features in it. I kind of like the bandsaw marks on it, just like you see circular saw mark. You know, they look good in certain situations. So that's one reason I'm thinking I might, on these timber trusses, not do the hand hewed effect. I'm probably going to brush on stain. Probably going to use a golden oak on the interior, and a beechwood permachink has got several good stains with good warranty on those. I'm going to use that on the exterior. But I'm going to brush the golden oak onto these timber trusses so they'll be darker than what I spray on the walls. And here I've got it, that cant down on the bed rails. You seeing it raising up on that far end just a little bit off the bed rails. So it let me know there that it's just not going to work. I cut in to the top of that cant a little bit. But like I said, it's not enough to justify cutting another one or anything. I'll just put it turned up inside that loft area so it won't be seen. So just a learning experience here. I watched a few videos on people cutting longer logs, but I have never tried to. I always get into different things here and there, but you know, you just don't know until you get going on something. So here I'm doing the first finished 4x8. It's like I said, I have these oversized, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to rough cut these, set them off to the side, and then come back and dress them off. I felt like that would be easier, getting it to a perfect dimension, just working on each one individually instead of trying to cut them perfect out of this full cant. So I think that was the best way of doing it. And I mean, it is some work in doing this, but you know, I've got about 15 or so long timbers that I need to cut, so I'm going to just work on it as I can to get these all cut out and get them ready so that I'll have them available for when I do need them. Let them dry a little bit. Here you see I'm looking at this, make sure I made a good cut on it, and I've got the engine still running, but I disengaged the saw blade, so I'm going to take Precious and just slide this log forward. That's going to move the saw head back towards the operator side. Then I'll just get back on, engage the blade, and just move forward and finish the cut. And this worked out best. You can see it's lifted just a little bit off those bed rails and set back down there. So this is the best way that I've found to keep a good cut on your finished wood there. I wasn't looking forward to doing this because I'd never done it before, but it all worked out pretty good in the end. It's just a little time consuming. I think it took a little over 2.5 hours to cut everything, clean up the 1x6 and clean all these 4x8s up. I got everything cleaned up. It's close to 3 hours anyway. Well, I got the first 4x8, finished 4x8, and I'll take it, set it off to the side with Precious there, and I'll come back and resaw it, edge everything out, and get it cleaned up down to the exact dimension. Now it's Precious's turn to get a hold of this rascal. I tell you, I can't say enough about that stump grapple on the front of a skid steer. It's just a good way of picking up logs, finished lumber. And Precious, she'll grab something and just go with it. Don't ask no questions. But I'll just take this now and set it off to the side. Probably set it on the log lift there. Come back later and resaw it. It's just a good way to get this down to a good finished size. I'll let you take a look at the end there. Then I just set it back on the lift arms. Good thing about the skid steer too, you can just make small adjustments here and there. Just move a little bit as you need to. That's one good thing about the hydraulics on it. Just delicate control, I guess is a good way to describe it. So here I've got it dropped down to cut that next 4x8 off. You can see it's leaving a 2x8 sitting on the bottom. I'll come back, resaw it later. I'll just set it off to the side and then start dressing up these finished boards as I need them. And it worked out good and leaving enough material on the timber until I came back to dress each one off. I think that was the right thing to do instead of just trying to cut them perfect in doing this, since it's not working with the longer logs. It's just a little bit too much to try and guarantee he's going to do. Here you can see I'm just pushing it back with precious, with the blade not running. I'll come back and make that finished cut and take it from there. I'm really looking forward to start stacking these logs. I'm tired of cutting and figuring and deciding of what I want to do. I'm ready to start stacking these logs. And that's one thing about it. It's going to be time consuming, just one man and his skid steer, but it's just something I think I'll enjoy doing once I get the log stacked up and get it dried in. That's when the pressure will be off. I can kind of hang back then, build the cabinets. I'm going to try and do most of the furniture that I have inside of them, these cabins. I plan on doing 3 or 4 anyway, aside from our cabin. And here I'm just dressing the top of this log off because it had one or two high spots down at the far end. You can see how I started, dropped the blade down to it and just barely started moving and engaged it so it wouldn't scuff it up too much where I started again. Doesn't matter about these being a little bit rough, but I want to get as good a cut as I can, not have heavy saw marks or stop and start spots on it. But it's all worked out pretty good overall. It's just one of those things that if you've never done it before, you got to get in there and rub your elbow a little bit, get a little elbow grease on it and see what you come up with. But overall, like I say, this thing turned out pretty good. So I've got that one. I think I come back and face the other side, the face of it, just flipping it over and looking at that top section. It looks like I'm going to come back and resaw it. It's hard to remember exactly what I did after I do the video, and then I come back and do this voiceover, so it looks like I am satisfied with it. So I'm going to get Precious, get that one out of the way, throw that other one up there, dress it off. So now this 4x8 is done, so I'll take it out to my storage shed, stack it out, throw that next 4x8 up there and edge it off to where I'm satisfied with it. Trim up that 2x8, do what I need to do with it, and that'll be it for the day on this. I want to thank all my viewers and subscribers, all your comments and questions. I enjoy all of them, especially the comments. People make different suggestions for what I'm doing, what I might think about doing. Means a lot to me. People are enjoying the little videos that I do. You know, having a little bit of automation added to the sawmill really helps for a one-man operation. It just made it more enjoyable for me instead of handling each individual flitch or finished boards. It's just more efficient and enjoyable during the day. When you get running 25 or so logs, it's a lot of work involved in it if you have to handle each piece coming off. So now I'm just edging this one back off to get it kind of cleaned up. what I did on the flitches, I just dropped back in. I'd start the engine and get the blade going and just drop down to it to finish off the flitches. But with this, you know, you can just kind of drop right into it and not leave any marks on it. But I appreciate you guys watching the video, all your questions and comments. So just keep them coming. I enjoy hearing from you, knowing that people enjoy what I'm doing. Means a lot. Well, here is the last 4x8 that I've straightened out. I think it's 4 1/4. They're about 8 1/4. So by the time I hand hew it with the Festool sculpting planer that I've got, it'll take out some of these little bobbles. I did have one area right down here on the end where my blade dived with me. I had to change it out. You can see right here where it went in probably 8 inches or so. I believe that's about 8 or 10 inches. But it's gonna be cutting about right in here. So I've only got like 4 1/2, 5 inches, and that's where my rafters are gonna set for the trusses. These are gonna be the joist section of my timber trusses in my cabin build. So I think I'm good with what I've got here. This is about a 3-hour process, but it all turned out good. I've got a 2x8 left on the floor. I'm gonna slice it down to 1 inch thick. 24 feet long is what these are. I've got some 36-inch logs that I've got to cut. I've got them all staged out there in the yard. I'll be getting to those shortly. You'll see it. So I appreciate it. You guys take care and be safe.